Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Exos Heroes, and today we're going to give you a review or maybe a preview of the upcoming Fate Core Chati. And although her Fate Core has not yet been released, we are able to see her Fate Core skills in the Unleash Potential page. So we thought this would be a great opportunity for us to take a sneak peek at what a new Fate Core has to offer and whether or not she is actually worth the time and resources once she is released in the following weeks. And as always, if you did enjoy this episode, at the end, please leave a like and subscribe. With that being said, let's jump in and take a look at the upcoming Fate Core for Chati. So once we go into the Unleash Potential page, you can see at the bottom here there are 3 skills, and you can click on this little icon here, which will then show you both her current base skill, what it does, as well as the Fate Core version of that skill. So let's take a quick look and just do a comparison between the 2 versions here and see if there's a significant upgrade. So this is her A1. Her base A1 is called Lucky Chassis, and what it does is at a 3 mana requirement it gives you a barrier, which is back row first. So if there's no back row hero left, it will apply to the front row hero, or in Dragon Holy Grounds it will apply to everyone. And it grants a barrier equal to 40% of Chati's maximum health, which is a decent amount because Chati does have a decent amount of health to work with. Now, if we look at the Fate Core version, and this is very interesting because the mana requirement is exactly the same. However, if we look at the barrier that's created here, it's only 17% instead of 40%. And it still lasts 12 turns, so the overall duration is the same, but it's much lower percentage. However, it also comes with another passive here, so it increases Chati's maximum health by 37% for 8 turns. So this is actually very interesting. Overall, in terms of the amount of additional health, as well as the barrier shield that you get for Chati, it's actually even better than it used to be, because you get a 37% increase to your health, which is essentially the same as getting that 40% shield. And on top of that, you get a 17% increased shield as well. But when we're thinking about just the shield amount, it's actually much lower than 40% because sure, you increase your maximum health by 37%, which brings your overall health pool to 1.37 times of your original amount. But then you multiply that by 17, and if our math is correct, it only turns out to be 23%, which is quite a bit lower than the 40% you get from the original skill. So in that sense, although this skill does make Chati a little bit more tankier than it used to be, it doesn't provide the same level of utility in terms of the barrier that it's created for the rest of your team. So in our opinion, this is actually somewhat of a downgrade. Sure, Chati can be a little bit tankier than she used to be, but that's not really the point of having a tank. When we're looking at a tank hero, what we want them to do is to bring the utility and share that with the rest of the team. If they cannot do that, it doesn't matter how good they are by themselves, unless they are a substantial damage threat, which Chati isn't. So in this case, this feels really somewhat of a downgrade to me. And of course, if we look at this, if you do have Unleash Potential, you are able to increase your own defense by 6 turns for 15% of your own defense. This is again, something that makes the tank itself a little bit tankier, but doesn't get transferred to the rest of your team, so the amount of utility it provides is pretty limited. But with that being said, let's move on to her skill 2. So her original skill 2 is called Miracle Shooting Star. And what it does is it deals 187% damage to one enemy and puts that enemy to sleep for 4 turns. It's pretty solid. Not fantastic, but it does brings a decent amount of utility in terms of putting a soft CC on potential damage threat on the other team. So let's take a look at a new skill here. Now it requires 4 mana versus 2, so that has went up. But it does more damage, nearly double the amount of damage. And in terms of the status effect, it changes from a sleep to a stun, which is an upgrade, and it increases duration up to 6 turns. So overall, in my opinion, this is a pretty solid change to her A2. It does a little bit more damage, which isn't really what we care about. What we do care about is the stun. Going from sleep to stun is definitely an upgrade because stun is just objectively better, and on top of that, the duration is a little bit longer too, which makes it a little bit easier to use. Now you can use it on more targets, and because duration is longer, it's a little bit more effective. However, the downside of that is it does come at a higher mana cost, so that is something to take into account for. In the past, it used to be pretty easy to get this skill off during the very first round, but now, given that it is a 4 mana requirement, that might be a challenge. But in other cases, I still think this is a pretty solid skill upgrade, so it does make up a little bit for kind of a lackluster A1 upgrade. But now, with that being said, let's move on to the passive here. So the original passive, which is Protect 3 plus Dragon Knight's Blessing, and I think that's still very much carried over to her new Fate Core skills too. Only addition to that is now she also gets Dimension Leap passive that is part of this entire Fate Core line. So what it does is, it functions as a mark, it increases dodge by 40% for self, so for Chati, and increases attack by 1000 whenever she is attacked. And this effect can stack up to 4 times, and it's removed whenever you're able to successfully dodge a skill. So how do we think about this? Is it better? Yes, it's objectively better than it used to be. This new additional mark passive here is pretty good. It does, again, makes Chati a little bit stronger in terms of giving her a little bit more damage, and also making her just that a bit more defensive as well, having the additional dodge to mitigate some of the incoming damage. The problem again here is, as we mentioned before, with all the tank heroes, what we want them to do is to bring utility, and not only bring utility for themselves, but to share that with the rest of the team. This skill is good for Chati, but it does not get transferred over to anyone else. So when we're thinking about this, if we think about Shell, right? Shell can make use of it a little bit better because she needs that self-sustain, she needs that ability to keep herself safe. If it's on an attack hero, like soon we'll see Corgi, I'm sure he will have the same passive here as well. And that would actually be pretty good, right? Just making yourself a little bit more harder to hit, make yourself to hit back a little bit harder. That's great. I don't quite like this passive on a defensive hero, on a utility-based hero, because sure it increases dodge, but Chati is already one of the tankier hero in the game with fantastic base defense, good HP, and really high block. What is the point of all these additional dodge, right, if it's not going to be shared with the rest of the team? So in my opinion, it's an upgrade for Chati, but does it make her function at a higher level for the role that she is designed for? I think the answer is no. And now if we look at on the right hand side here, if you do get Unleash potential for her passive here, you are able to reduce all allies' damage taken by 15%. So that is pretty good. The wording here is a little bit weird. It says reduces all allies' damage. No, it's not a damage output, it's just the damage that you're taking, so don't worry about that. So that is actually pretty good. If you are going to get Unleash potential for Chati, we do believe that the stamina tree is the one that you want to go down for. The defense tree is not something we really recommend. There really isn't all that much of a buff when it comes to the things you get from the defense tree. And in terms of the attack tree, we do recommend to go down to kind of the 3rd tier and able to get this increased attack speed, because that does make a difference, but you don't have to go all the way down past that. So with all that being said, what do we think about Chati? Right, if we look back at everything we talked about, A1 is a shield that is weaker for the rest of your team. You get an HP buff, which makes Chati a little bit stronger, but then the trade-off is the utility you provide is a little bit weaker. A2 is a decent upgrade, but again, that is not the bread and butter of Chati. And then when we look at her passive, it adds a little bit of value for Chati herself, doesn't do anything for the rest of the team, or make her any better at providing utility for the rest of your team either. So overall, we have to say, this is somewhat of a lackluster Fate Core. She looks really cool with her new design. We really love this new line of Fate Cores. All of them looks really nice. And Chati looks attractive in her new shining armor here. But in terms of substance, I have to say, it is a little bit of a letdown. If you are a collector out there, if you're a seasoned player who just want to collect as many Fate Cores as you want, this would be a good one. But if you are a newer player, or someone who are still looking for that dedicated tank hero to round off your roster, then we have to say we can't really recommend Chati as the way she is. Her base kit is already pretty good, and if you have that, it's probably enough. You're not going to get a massive upgrade by getting this Fate Core, and given what we have coming up in the future, with all the collaboration Fate Cores and other things, this might be a skip for the most of us out there. So, with that being said, this is going to be it for us for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys learned a couple of things. Chati, again, cool, fun, but not great. So think twice before you sink all your zest into her. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and subscribe. As always, we've got more Exos Heroes and Genshin Impact video coming out, and maybe some other fun things that we do here and there. So stay tuned for those, and we will see you in the next episode very soon. Bye bye.